Hello and welcome back to Reading with Mo. Today I'm going to be sharing you guys all my thoughts of all the books that I read or attempted to read in the month of July. Altogether, there are 15 books I'm going to be mentioning to you guys. 2 of them were DNFs, so I feel like when I look back on my reading month for the month of July, I was trying to think about what maybe things kind of had all in common as I was reading, and I noticed about halfway into the month that unhinged is the one word I would use to describe my reading. Not that the reading itself was unhinged, but the characters. Not every book, but a good majority of the books that I ended up picking up in the month of July, the main characters were, or maybe even multiple other people in the book, were unhinged. So I kind of decided I want to talk to you guys about the books today in the order of how I enjoyed them, like all from DNFs all the way to my higher ratings. Spoiler alert, I had no 5-star ratings last month, unfortunately, so up to my 4-star reads. Or do I want to talk about them in order of how unhinged I feel like the main character was? And I think it'd be kind of fun to do it in this order. Now, we'll start from least unhinged to most, but I should also mention, I read 15 books for the month. I didn't read any ebooks, but I listened to 7 audiobooks, which was about the same that I listened to in June. So I'm doing about the same amount of audiobooks. I typically do like 1 to 2 audiobooks a week. I average about like 2 audiobooks a week. And then books that I read physically off my shelves were 8. So that was really good because in June, I only read 2 books off my physical shelves. So that is an improvement. Hopefully in August, we can still see the same, about a 50-50 split. But we'll see. Before we get into how unhinged each character was, I'm going to start with my 2 DNFs. The first one is The Safekeep. I've been seeing this one all over Instagram because it recently won one of those women's prize awards. The author is Yael van der Wooden. I want to figure out which award it was that won, but I'm not seeing it right now. But I was listening to this as an audiobook. I was really enjoying it so much. I thought it was going to be a 5-star read, so it hurt me so much to DNF this book because it just went in a direction I just was not expecting. And partially it's my fault because I didn't really read the synopsis going into it, which is rare for me, but I just have seen it getting so much hype on Instagram, and I like the cover of it. So my library, I was able to get skip the line loan. So I was listening to it one day as I was doing my house cleaning. So I listened to it for a good 2 hours straight. And then once it started going in the direction that I was just this isn't for me, then I was very sad because, like I said, I thought this was going to be a 5-star read. But this is a historical fiction book. It takes place in the Dutch countryside in the summer of 1961. It's described as an exploration of the legacy of World War II. What I really loved going into this book was I love when houses feel like a character within a book. I'm thinking The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. I loved that book. And I thought this was giving me these exact same vibes. How things were happening for our main character. She's kind of this spinster recluse who's living in this house. Her brother inherited, but she is living in it because she doesn't really have any other funds or means to support herself. But then her brother starts dating this woman, and he is someone who's always been through women all the time. So, but it seems like things may be more serious with this, and if it is, they may want to move in the house and at the very least kick her out. But I mean, at the very most kick her out, but at the very least live with her. And she's such a recluse, kind of a little bit off person that she just doesn't want to be she's just set in her ways. She doesn't want to be around these people that she doesn't really care for too much, especially this girl. And this girl just seems like she has it in for this house. She's wanting to get in this house, live in this house. And she ends up staying with her while the boyfriend's out of town, and just all of that had me boiling how I was feeling. I very much sympathized with the main character, but I mean, I could also see both sides as well. And it's kind of this obsession. Obsession is a big theme in the book, and I feel like I can't fully say why I DNF the book, because it could potentially be a spoiler because it was at about the 30% in mark. It just turned into I thought this was just going to be a book that was more I guess the direction I thought this book was going in was this cat and mouse obsession game and like who's gonna win the house and stuff. I thought this was gonna be like a battle of the wills. Like, is the sister gonna win? Is the girlfriend going to win? Like, the situation that they found themselves in, I was just like eating it up. And then it went into a direction, I'm not gonna say spoilers like I said, but it went into a romantic direction that I wasn't expecting and I didn't like, because then it just became a whole different story and I DNF'd it. But that's okay. I did like the author's writing, so maybe I'll look into seeing if she has any other books, or if she comes out with any other books in the future. If they sound interesting, I will try and pick them up and see if I like them better. The other book that I DNF'd in July was very sad and unfortunate, but that is Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. This is the first book in a gigantic epic fantasy series, and I decided I am not going to attempt the series. I really tried. I sat down a few different times through the month to read it, and I found myself having to go back and reread things. I got to page like 76, and this is the first time I attempted the book. I lightly tried it like a couple of other times, but I just never really like committed to it. But this July I committed. I was like, I'm gonna do this thing. And I was watching some other like YouTube videos about it, other people's comments and stuff, and I just couldn't. There's so many books in this series, like, and then the series, part of the series that's like written by another author, and then stuff I think that's still going on. Then there's like these novellas and stuff, and I just realized like, it wasn't for me. I feel like I was reading, but I was not processing, and I just felt like I wasn't getting enough enjoyment out of the book for how much work I was putting in. And the fact that this is such a gigantic epic series, I figured I would just cut my losses early instead of investing more time and money if I did buy the free books in the future. I'm glad that I did get to this book, and unfortunately it'll be a DNF, but that's okay. Not everything is going to be a win, and that's one more book off of my physical shelves. It's probably good that I didn't get into this series because I currently don't have any room on my shelves, so where I would put like the 20 plus books that are part of this series in my library at the moment, I have no idea. Okay, so now let's get into some books that I did actually finish. And I think what we can do is maybe start, so in the month of July, I participated in Jane Austen July, and so I wouldn't put Jane Austen books or books about Jane Austen as books that would be unhinged. So we're gonna start on the low side of the unhinged barometer. I finished 4 books during my week of reading Jane Austen July books. None of them were actually her books. They were all ended up being books either about her or books about, one of them was kind of like a retelling spin-off from Pride and Prejudice. Because I have a whole reading vlog talking about these books, I'm not going to go into them too in-depth here. And just recap, I read Miss Caroline Bingley, Private Investigator, I listened to this one, by Kelly Gardner and Sharmini Kumar. This book I ended up giving a 3-star rating to. We're following our main character. Her name is Caroline Bingley, and she is one of the characters featured in Pride and Prejudice. This is taking place 2 years after Pride and Prejudice ends, and she is finding herself involved in this mystery of a missing maid and going through London, figuring out stuff. I found her as a character very interesting. I didn't think she was unhinged, but I mean, I guess if you were living back in this Victorian time period, you would probably think a lot of the actions that she takes are very unhinged. So I guess this was the most unhinged character of my Jane Austen July reads. The other 3 were all nonfiction books, so yeah, none of these were unhinged. I read Jane Austen and Her World by Josephine Ross. This was a very short book. I finished it in one day. It was a very brief overview, but gives you everything you really need to know about Jane Austen, and I gave this one a 4-star rating. I also read a memoir of Jane Austen. This is written by her nephew, and I gave this one a 4-star read as well. It was interesting to read about Jane Austen by someone who actually like was in her family, who knew her. There were some of her letters that he included in the book, as well as a chapter or 2 from chapters from her books that weren't included in the publishing or like that were changed. So I guess I did read some of her writings through this book. I ended up giving this one a 4-star rating as well. And then lastly, the book that I really enjoyed the most during my Jane Austen July reads, but I unfortunately don't have a physical copy yet. I will, because I know I'm going to reread this book again in the future. That is Jane Austen's Bookshelf, a rare book collector's quest to find the women writers who shaped a legend by Rebecca Romney. In this nonfiction book, we are following the author as she's exploring all these different books that Jane Austen most likely read herself, or at least were authors that she would probably have been aware of during her time. She gave us the stories of a lot of different women authors, and she didn't just give us their stories, but kind of like framed it in how they were important and how they would have influenced her, potentially influenced Jane Austen. She goes through her experience reading their books and her opinions on them, and while not all of them she is the most favorable of, she does a good job of objectively like explaining how each woman still has some like redeeming qualities and what was important about their writing. It's interesting that she goes on this journey to find specific books and editions of books by these women that she wants to then include in her own library, which very much influenced me to want to pick up some books by these women and learn more about them. I feel like this is a book that I need mini readings of to fully grasp everything and to like stick everything in my brain, but just the stories of some of these women were just so amazing, and they're not stories that I feel like a lot of people are familiar with, but I think that should definitely be given more attention to for sure. So that wraps up all my Jane Austen July reads. Okay, now we are officially entering our unhinged women, because I'm realizing all of these characters are women except for one men. I just typically gravitate towards books that are from the perspective of women. So I have 9 more books to share with you guys, and we're going to start off with least to most. So the least we're going to start off with is Yasmin from Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I guess some of the actions that her and her husband did in the book could be described as unhinged to some people, but you know, it kind of works out for them in the end. So I put her very much on the low end. This is the first book in the Skyland series. I picked up the second one this month, This Could Be Us. This is part of a trilogy, contemporary romance. We are following Yasmin and Josiah in the first book, and they are a couple who have been together a long time. They've had a lot of history. They have kids together. They have a restaurant together in Atlanta, and they end up getting divorced because they go through a lot of loss in a short period of time, and their marriage and their inner selves were not strong enough and they did not have the tools to be able to successfully get through that time as a marriage duo, and so they get divorced. And that's all has happened before the book even starts. And then when the book starts, we are jumping back into their lives. I think it's been a couple years since the divorce, but you can clearly see that they both have a lot of feelings for each other. And it just seems like it's inevitable that they are going to get back together, but they still have each a lot of problems that they haven't necessarily worked through and solved and resolved. So them getting back together could potentially be a bad thing because they aren't necessarily in the best places. So they're kind of still trying to date other people and navigate, co-parenting, co-business partners. They live in the same neighborhood. So I enjoyed it. I ended up giving this one a 4-star rating. While some of it was predictable a bit to me, I did enjoy my time reading it, and I'm now reading the second one in the book, which is she has 2 best friends, and each of the other books follows one of the best friends, and I think I'm enjoying the second book a little bit more, but I did enjoy their family as characters, and I feel like the book does talk about a lot of positive notes towards mental health and therapy. So for that reason, I'm definitely putting it on the least unhinged, because while they were going through these difficult times and not making the most rational and best choices, they were well aware that this was happening and sought help. So that makes you not unhinged for sure. Next up, we have another new release, and this is The Tiny Things Are Heavier by Esther Ifesinachi Okonkwo. I ended up giving this book a 4-star rating. We are following our main character, Sami. She is a Nigerian woman who has come to the United States for school, goes through this traumatic experience of her brother attempting suicide and then having to go to the school like 2 weeks after that. So she's processing a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of things going on in her life, so we can give her some grace in why her unhinged choices are what they are. When she is in the United States, she ends up getting with her roommate, He's also another student and immigrant. They can't afford to live on their own, so she ends up finding him as a roommate. His name is Bio. She ends up in this love triangle with Bio, and then there's this other guy named Brian, who is a biracial American who is estranged from his Nigerian father, who left America shortly after Brian was born, so he doesn't really have a relationship with him. Sami ends up going to Nigeria with Brian on her school break, not just to see her family, who she hadn't seen for a while because she's been out in the United States for school, but Brian wants to look for his father while he's there. And I will say, it gets very unhinged, some things that happen while they're there. I'm not going to give away spoilers because this part is significantly into the book, but I will just say, like, some of the decisions she makes, like, I understand, like, family ride or die, but still some of the decisions she makes are very unhinged, not exactly legal, so that's why we are going to include her as being someone who is unhinged, but at the same time I can kind of understand the reasons why she made her decisions, even though it ends up, like, I feel by the time we're at the end of the book, Sami as a person still has a lot of growing to do, has a lot of things that she just needs to figure out. But she's still young, so she has time to figure these things out in her life. So if you're looking for a book where there's, like, a lot of character growth in the main character, I would say that this is maybe not for you. Next up, we have The Dream Hotel by Layla Lailami. Our main character in this book, her name was Sada. This book was so good. This book was a high 4-star reading. It's so realistic because in this world that we're living in, it's like surveillance how we have now, but definitely bumped up. So, like, the government can monitor your dreams and basically everything that you do in your life that is caught on camera or online, and it all goes into this AI risk assessment system that determines if you're someone who is likely to commit a crime or not. And if you are likely to commit a crime, you get sent into this place that's not a prison. I forget what they call it. It was like a retention center or something, but it's basically a prison. And they can pretty much keep you there indefinitely. And while you're there, the rules are very frustrating and backwards. And our main character, rightly so, is a little unhinged because she finds herself in this very traumatizing situation. And even little things like someone in your family having been a criminal can make your score go up. So things that are completely out of your control. Your dreams are completely out of your control. But if you have a dream that is violent or violent towards someone that you know, then your scores can go up. There's so many things that can affect it, and it's, like, nearly impossible to get your scores to come down so that you can leave the retention center while you're there. It definitely has some themes of, like, capitalism, because then it's profit. People who are there are doing work, like tech type of work, and that results in them making money for these retention centers. So I would not say that Sada is actually unhinged. She is more so just in these impossible situations. Like, she doesn't really know what to do. She wants to get out, and she's trying to do what she can. And the actions that everybody else takes, like her husband, she has newborn twins, so she's trying to get out of there and get back to her life. But just the people around her, from her lawyers to the people who run this, to the people that run the facilities, to her own family, how they all treat and act and move would make anybody want to become unhinged, because I would be so upset and I would just be crashing out all the time if I was her. But you can't crash out, because then that is going to make your score go up. So it's a very toxic cycle, and you basically just have to live with it because there's nothing you can do about it. Some of the actions that she takes to try to get herself out of the situation that she's in could be described as slightly unhinged, maybe viewed as it was definitely viewed as unhinged by people who are in this retention center, by the people who run the retention center. I don't want to give away spoilers, but her unhingedness works in her favor, I'll just say. And so, yeah, I found this book very interesting. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star rating, and I look forward to picking up other books by this author in the future. Next, we have Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. This is the third and final book in Heather Fawcett's Emily Wilde series. This is the conclusion. I listened to this one on audiobook. I think I did. I might have done my physical book as well, actually, at the same time. I can't really say too much about this book as it's the conclusion of the trilogy. This series is a fantasy romance book that is taking place in the fairy world. It's definitely on the cozy vibes, even though technically there's a lot of stuff that happens. It's very high stakes. It's told in such a way that you don't really feel like it's high stakes, even though like some pretty bad things can have happened throughout this series. Emily is human from the human world, but she is a scholar. She studies the Fae people, and her romantic interest, Wendell, is from the Fae world. I really am scared to say too much that will give it things away. In case you guys have not read this series yet, Emily, I feel like she's actually not that unhinged of a character, but Wendell definitely is an unhinged character. And if you know, you know, if you've read these books. So that's the reason why I'm kind of putting this one like in the middle. Even though Emily, she is actually pretty sane and she goes through a lot of crazy experiences in this book. She is the more sane of the two in this pairing. But Wendell, he definitely is taking the cake on this one on being an unhinged character, but you know, his unhinged decisions always end up working out one way or another for him in the end, so I can't be mad at him for that. Next, we have Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang. This was another high 4-star rating for me. I previously read Natural Beauty by this author. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love that one. At least, like, I don't know whatever I was expecting to get out of it. I feel like I wanted a little more. This one, very interesting. It's not too long of a book either. We're following these two friends that are going to art school. Their world is set very much in a similar time to ours, but maybe just advance the technology just a little bit, maybe like bump up our technology 100 years or so. This is a lit fic slash sci-fi book. There are sci-fi elements, but it's not like heavy sci-fi. It's mainly just in the slightly advanced technology that they have access to. They're two girls that we're following, Inka and Matilda. They are both going to an art school, and what happened during their time, well, before they went to the school, is there were these like things that were installed, these walls that end up kind of creating a class divide between people. And so one of the girls is from each side. Matilda is this art student who is like the number one of her class. She's a star. She's rising. She has a lot of attention on her. And then we follow Inka, who comes from the less desirable side. She's there kind of more on a scholarship. Her family isn't supportive of her being there. She has a little bit of imposter syndrome. She's majoring in art and technology, something like that, because that was the only way that she could really get into the school. They definitely have an obsessive friendship, but they each really rely on each other at different times of the book for fulfillment of different things. Both of them, I would say, definitely make choices that are a bit unhinged. Inka, she allows her feelings of jealousy and envy and obsession with Matilda, and the fact that Matilda is so high, to really shape her life. And I feel like that is an unhinged thing to do. A lot of the choices that she makes, especially because of the technology that she ends up getting access to, are very unhinged. I can't give away spoilers. I feel like talking about these characters and books in the order of unhinged is backfiring on me, because I can't necessarily tell you guys why each of these characters are unhinged without giving major spoilers. So I will just say that like both of them have very interesting perceptions of each other, and just their relationship dynamics was just so interesting to read from. And I'm definitely looking forward to whatever Ling Huang writes in the future. I will be picking it up. Next up, we have The Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series, a romantasy series that many people are familiar with. I finally picked up the second book. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, I believe, either like January this year or maybe earlier last year. Yeah, it was about like a year ago. And I ended up giving the second book a 4-star rating. I enjoyed my time with this book. I thought it was interesting. I'm definitely going to continue on with the series. Do I think this is the best writing ever? My most favorite characters ever? No, but I feel like I went in with not having too high of expectations, and I have been enjoying my time and getting to kind of know about this world, especially this world that is very popular. This book earns its place in the middle of unhinged, because there are a lot of characters in this book that are very unhinged. If you've read the series, you know that, and there's a lot of decisions that are made that are unhinged by male and female characters in this book. I can't give away spoilers. This book is the second book in the series. A lot of people say that as you continue on with the series, the books do get better. I enjoyed the first one, so I know some people like really just disliked it, but I enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to continuing on with the series. Next up, we have The Woman in the Wallpaper by Laura Jones. So this book is a historical fiction novel. It takes place set around the time of the French Revolution, and we're following the perspective of three characters. Two are sisters, and one girl, she kind of comes from the more higher up in the upper class aristocracy. She's living in Versailles with her family, and she ends up getting in this arranged marriage and having to leave and kind of be downgraded in her lifestyle. The two sisters, they end up moving to this wallpaper factory because in the beginning of the novel, their father dies in this car accident, or not car accident because they didn't have cars then, in this like a wagon. I'm blanking on the name of what those things are called, but it upends their whole lives, and so they have to move with their mother to this wallpaper factory. A brief overview of why I think the characters in this book are unhinged, with no spoilers. One of the sisters, she's just so obsessed with the revolution to her downfall that she's unhinged, and we can forgive her for some of the unhinged decisions that she makes, especially when it comes to someone that she has romantic feelings for, because she's young, and no one who is that age is necessarily a good judge of character and makes the best decisions. Her sister is literally kind of just like going crazy in her mind and seeing and hallucinating things, so that's pretty unhinged. But we can also slightly forgive her because she was in that accident that her father was killed in, and she ended up getting like hit in the head, and since then she's just like not the same, and she's questioning a bit her sanity because of things that she is seeing. And then the third character, she is definitely a snooty character. She thinks she's better than everybody, but I also really liked her. She was like, so not necessarily that I liked her or how she treated people or how she looked down on everybody else, but for her coming from the like upper class society, she did try to kind of like have some independence in a way that women didn't have then, and I don't agree with the way that she went about things and how she treats people and stuff like that, but I feel like she was rebelling in her own way that is available to her, and she has very limited knowledge, so we can maybe forgive her a little bit for some of her decisions, and that she's just kind of naive as well, because they're all young. At the end of the day, these are all young women. But yeah, I enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4-star rating, and I would be open to picking up other books by Laura Jones. I'm just now realizing I read a lot of books that were sequels or parts of series in the month of July. The next one is a sequel, and that's The Woman in Suite 11. This is by Ruth Ware, and the follow-up to the very popular The Woman in Cabin 10, which I read years ago when this book came out. Never thought that it was ever going to get a sequel, but here we are with the sequel. I'm sure because the first book is being adapted into a movie that the author wanted to write a sequel so that the second one can be made into a movie as well if the movie does well. We are following the same character from The Woman in Cabin 10, Lo Blacklock. We are fast forwarding many years since the events that happened in the first book. She's now married, she has kids. She's now trying to get back into working. She hasn't been doing much because she has become a stay-at-home mom. And she gets this mysterious invitation to the opening of this very luxury hotel in the Swiss. It's a Swiss luxury hotel owned by reclusive billionaire Marcus Liedman. So she takes this as an opportunity to hopefully try to get a job doing an interview of him while she's there and take advantage of this paid vacation pretty much while she gets a break from her kids and family, and maybe to jumpstart her going back into her career, because she did write a book after the events that happened in the first book, but since then she hasn't really done much. As far as the plot goes, we're gonna leave it there, but I feel like To me personally, the decisions that she makes are very unhinged in this book. The fact that she puts herself and her family at so much risk of like for someone that she essentially barely knows, and makes decisions that she knows her husband would not approve of, because they're not decisions that a sane person would be making. Decisions that are illegal, decisions that are putting you and your family at risk, I think are pretty unhinged, especially for somebody that you do not know and that she feels like she owes something to. No, this is every decision she made, I would have made the opposite. So for that reason, I am putting her very much near the top of our unhinged list. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but I ended up giving this one a 3-star rating. And then last but not least, we have my lowest rated book of the month, and the book that was filled with nothing but unhinged characters, to be honest, and that is The French Honeymoon by Anne-Sophie Juhano. This book has very low ratings on Goodreads. It sparked my interest when I was researching 2025 books that were coming out. Since I had a copy from Libby of the audiobook, I was going to listen to it. Even though it did have low ratings, I was like, maybe I'll still enjoy it, and I probably should have just like taken that as a sign. But yeah, we're following 3 main characters, and each of them has their own audiobook narrator. The French guy, oh my god, his narration was so hard to listen to with the accents and speeding up. So like normally I listen to audiobooks somewhere between 1.75 to 2 times speed, and with his I was having to listen to it practically at speed, because speeding up the French accent was, I just could not understand what the heck he was saying. This thriller is about a honeymoon gone wrong. So we're following one couple is staying at this hotel, and outside they seem picture perfect. They have everything Instagram perfect, right? And then we're following another woman who is checked into the same hotel, and she is supposed to be on her honeymoon, but it ends up being just her there. She notices the other couple who's on their picture perfect honeymoon from Instagram, and she starts kind of becoming obsessed with them a little bit, seeing them around town, kind of starts following them because the wife is posting a lot of her stuff online, and so she's able to see what they're up to and what they're doing, and she starts seeing the things that are like a little bit off and maybe not as picture perfect as everything seems. I feel like this book was just like so predictable. I predicted a lot of the things that were going to happen before they happened. Each of the characters, I just didn't care about any of them. Like, the author didn't have me care about any of the characters. I thought they were all terrible people. They were all unhinged in their each own way. They were all very selfish and self-centered, each of them. So I just didn't really care by the end of the book, like, what happened. I was just listening just to see what happened at the end, but not because I had any true investment in the plot and what was happening. Is this a book I would recommend? No. And would I want to pick up another book by this author just based off of this book alone? That would also be a no. I'm really glad I didn't listen to this book when I originally intended to. When I was on my honeymoon, I was like, oh, I should listen to like a honeymoon thriller when I'm on my honeymoon. I just didn't get around to listening to this, and I'm glad I didn't, because this book was not worth my time. So that wraps up all of the books that I read and attempted to read in the month of August. That's it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you guys enjoyed seeing all my thoughts about everything I read last month. I'm pretty happy with the quantity that I got to last month. The quality could have been a little better in that I wish I had at least 1 or 2 5-star reads for last month, but I'm just so picky with them that I'm not surprised that I didn't. But yeah, I'll leave you guys here, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.